So I will be discussing the Assembly Bill 10, which, if you guys don't remember, it will be the increase to $9 an hour on July 1st, 2014 for minimum wage, and it'll be the 2016 $10 raise. Now, my opponent states that the newly imposed minimum wage bill will have a negative effect on the state of California, and his secondary claim is that the increase in wage for employees will cause employers to create fewer jobs, even cutting current ones, thus creating unemployment. And his first point is that it will force people out of jobs due to business owners being unable to afford paying employees. Now, the example he uses is his previous boss that owns Tony Roma's Fullerton and San Marcos, and he says that his boss will be putting one of San Marcos up for sale due to, he says that it's due to the raise in minimum wage, but I feel like he doesn't really offer other reasons as to why this was the case. He didn't state his possible financial status, and I actually took the liberty of looking up the Yelp reviews on both Fullerton and San Marcos, and although both have a 3 stars out of 5 rating, I looked at the 2013 rates, and Fullerton actually has an average of 4 stars, whereas San Marcos has an average of 2.5 stars. So this can be one of the reasons as to why he would have to put one up for sale. His second point, he stated Betsy McCoffey's, and she offers statistics about young black men and their unemployment rates. But she actually has a long track record of misinforming the public, and it all started in October 1994 with the No Exit article that she wrote in regards to the Clinton healthcare, and basically it caused a lot of riot within the public, and even the editor of the paper that it was written in, which was the New Republic, he even stated in October 2007 that he was aware that it had flaws, and he still ran it to cause provocation to debate. There was another occasion where she did a false claim in February 9, 2009, and basically I found this in Media Matters for America, which is a nonprofit web-based research and information center that monitors, analyzes, and corrects misinformation in U.S. media. And they actually wrote a complete article on which called her the Healthcare Misinformer of the Year in 2009. And they do state a variety of different examples of moments where she does make a false claim, and then she backtracks and says, oh, well, that's not what I meant. So in the February 9, 2009, her false claim was, recovery bill provides government bureaucrats to monitor treatments and control practice of medicine. And when she was questioned, she kind of backtracked and she was like, well, legislation is vague enough to allow it to happen in the future. There was a second time in 2009, which is on May 11th, where she was discussing the House healthcare policy, and she basically was talking about Dr. Emanuel, which was one of the gentlemen that was doing research on that, and he said that we're going to have to push doctors to eliminate the Hippocratic Oath. And when she was questioned, she was like, oh, well, he actually believes reform must include redefining the Hippocratic Oath. And then, again, she was questioned again, and she tried to distort and misrepresent his remarks in one of his New England Journal of Medicine book review that he wrote. And at the end of the day, she was just like, well, he's just Obama's health rationer in chief. His third point, he discussed Wisconsin's correlation between minimum wage and unemployment increase. And he actually was quoting John Mercure, which he is actually just a journalist and a host for Wisconsin's Afternoon News. And within the article, it seems like it was mainly his opinion, because he kept stating, I think, or I believe. And actually in the article, he was quoting Brett Healy, which I believe was a better source than John Mercure. And he's basically from McIver Institute, and it did state a study that they did in regards to the minimum wage and employment, so the statistics that he did provide were correct. However, I do feel that it did not show other examples as to why the unemployment rate increased, where such as other factors that could have caused that. So I have discussed his 3 points, and I've just refuted all 3 points. So I don't feel that his primary claim is incorrect. I actually do believe that it does have a negative effect on the state of California, but I do feel that his examples and the information he used to back it up was not the best to use. Thank you.
I feel bad for my second source on that one. What? Said I feel bad for my second source on that one. Ripped her apart.
Damn.
She was her promo that she reviewed.
Yeah.
Down.
What have you been? See, I told you. I guess I could like this. I like just going my blood sugar's low. No,
She like weights. It's like a piece of candy or something.
I had about these cigarettes like all day.
All Kit
What's
Kat.
in Kit Kat?
Kit Kat's and Reese's are what it's all about.
Blood sugar's so low.
You know, you wake up and you just like dry your feet. Drink some orange juice. Don't want that. I feel like I haven't slept in about like a week and a half. It's really annoying. Because I have to sleep with a defibrillator.
What?
Defibrillator.
I'm right next to you.
It's like the ears. It hurts the ears. It was not loud, but it's like windy.
All right. I think you identified the topic and the opponent's secondary claims pretty clearly. You're looking at the advocate's personal example. I thought that was an interesting one to go after, suggesting that there might be a counter-causality for it closing. Looking at the ratings on Yelp, that's an interesting approach to it. I'm not sure how convincing it is, but it does have the advantage of raising some doubt there. The basic premise doesn't seem to be largely challenged, just the example. On the second point, that's the same sort of thing, is the premise is not being argued, it's really the evidence. And I think that you've got a valid point to challenge evidence and point out when you think that the evidence is problematic, but you always have to tell us why then that undermines the advocate's claim. So if that was the only evidence that they presented and it comes from a source that is notoriously unreliable, something like that, then I think you are in pretty good shape. But if the general premise is supported by a variety of other evidence, spending so much time refuting the one piece of information seems like it's not going to get you much traction. It also doesn't help when at the end you, in essence, concede, look, I believe it is going to have a negative effect. Well, then all we're really talking about is whether or not you like the evidence, not whether or not the premise is valid and whether or not it was supported or convincing. Now it becomes a critique of the speech instead of a refutation of the speech. And there's a place for that. That's what I mostly do. But you need to also be thinking about the answer to the argument. By the way, it's interesting because if we were having this whole discussion in a debate format where there was going to be a lot of back and forth, I think that the researcher or the advocate could easily come back and talk about Media Matters and whether or not it is in fact an independent organization, because it is largely, it's got a political agenda also, and both sides point fingers at the other side doing the very kinds of things that you mentioned, pointing out, oh, they've said something this way and they've twisted this around, or they were inaccurate. There's always in the election years, they always have, what they call fact check. And of course, you think fact checks would just check facts, right? But they rarely just limit themselves to facts, because it's always about interpretation. And that's where the argument is in the interpretation. So I don't know how much traction you got. You spent a lot of time on that issue, the one source, and I think you could get a little bit more traction on it if you also had some information that suggested contrary conclusions. The argument on the third point, I guess it's mostly, the same sort of thing. In essence, you're conceding the evidence and just saying he used the wrong part of the evidence. He used the quote from the one guy who's offering an opinion instead of the statistical information from the research that the guy was referring to. And I think that's a valid criticism to make, but I'm not sure it is something that undermines the argument. It undermines the arguer, a little bit more. So you might want to think more about the issues too, rather than just the technical stuff, although the technical stuff is relevant. All right, thank you.